When we left off last week, we had just finished taking off the casting pour spouts, and I was working on part fit. I went ahead in with the Dremel, ground out what was left of the casting pour spouts in there, and then I just went in to make sure we'd get a good fit. And as you can see here, this kit was designed to minimize the aspect of puttying up along here, because they did it along the fur line. So we're good there. And again, this part, you know, and I tried to keep these on here because it helps align the parts up. We had a little problem right here where this had come off, but actually we'll be able to fix this up after the arm is attached and actually painted, so we don't worry about that. The leg, you know, went in really nice. We're not going to have any problems with that. The next step you're going to want to do is, and I'm not showing this on air, is you want to take your kit and go wash it, because when resin is cast, they spray a mold release on it to pull it out, and that's usually, remnants of that is usually left on the kit. So actually you want to do this for vinyl kits too. You go in with a sink of warm water, or hot water actually. I'd go a little hotter with the resin, and you know, put some dish soap in it, stir it up, let it sit a little bit, and then come in with a soft bristle brush and just kind of scrub it up a little bit to get your mold release off of it. And then you sit and let it dry. And then the next step you're going to want to do is assembly and putty work. But before we do any assembly on it, where the casting halves are, you know, this is reminiscent of styrene kits, you know, where the parts go together. But unfortunately, we don't have the gluing technique that Rob can do. This already comes along in a casting, and you can see right here, here's the line there, and on that side, but on the legs, you know, so we're definitely going to have to come in and do some putty work on them. The arms actually were cast really clean, so we're not even going to have to worry about doing any putty work on the arms. So those are done, and that's really nice, you know. As I stated last week, some kits are cast really nice where you're not going to have to do anything. If you see here, the part we're really having trouble with mold lines is on the legs. We can get away with it in the fur because it kind of blends in. Now, what we use for, or what I use for doing a lot of seam work is the AV's epoxy. It's a two-part. You mix it together. But what's really nice about it is you can use water to smooth it out, and that really helps, because we've used Milliput before, or you use the testers or Squadron, and I really had a hard time using it. And the AV's has just made it a really breeze to do the putty work on a kit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up a little bit. I'm actually, because it's going to be easier to show on this leg because it's a smaller piece, I'm going to do the putty work on here, and we'll have to go in the hair detail you see here. There's actually resin that's built up. You can either take a point like this, pointy tool like this. This is actually a clay working tool. Or actually you can take your X-Acto knife and you just come in and you can scrape back in the hair detail on that. So here, we'll do a little bit of this first just to give you a little bit of a rundown on that. This helps clean it up just a tiny bit. And as you go along, you'll see pieces where resin is built up. Just kind of scrape them out. And along these lines, if you can scrape it out a little bit, that helps. I ain't going to mess with this one too much because it is kind of offset. So we're going to use the putty to build it up. Bottom half of the boot is fairly well cleaned up. Obviously, for time constraints, we're not going to sit here and do the putty work on the whole kit. We're just going to show you some here and there's. So I've used this before when we did the vinyl building episode last year. What you want to do is take 2 equal parts of this. One is the putty and then one is the catalyst to harden it. Don't ask me which one's which. But you want to try to get 2 equal parts of the putty. And another note is a little bit of AV's goes a long way. Actually, Rob keeps giving me some out of his cases here, because those 2 cases, you can do quite a few models out of that. And it's always good to kind of keep your fingertips wet and stuff like this. Another nice thing about the AV's is it's a non-toxic, You know, obviously I wouldn't suggest eating it, but touching it with your bare hands and stuff like that isn't going to be bad. Like I'll use plumber's putty, which is you know, a two-part like this, and it gets rock hard, but I don't like touching it with my bare hands, so I use rubber gloves because it's got a real bad odor, and it's very toxic. So we're going to go along. I'm going to pull a part off here. And how do you know, well, if it's mixed together? Well, it'll have a consistent gray, lightish gray color. So I'm going to take a little bit off over there. I'm just going to put it between my thumb and my finger. Still got too much in there. And I'm just going to roll out a small bead of it in my hand here. Get a look at it there. Actually, this is still pretty big. Like I said, a little bit of this goes quite a ways. And don't try to do the whole leg seam in one shot. You don't have to do that. So I'll probably do this length right here. I'll just go ahead. Oh, stick it in there. Actually, we still got quite a bit of putty left in there. But now you just want to take your finger, because it's a smooth surface, and just mush the putty down. See? What we're trying to do is mush it down, and then with all that water, it's going to smooth out that line. You know, we might have to come back in with a little sandpaper to try to get rid of that ridge that's going to be along there. But with the offsets, this works the best, because you can just smooth it out. As you can see, I've got some tools here, you know, if I have to sculpt some detail in, but with this, I can just, you know, use my finger to smooth it out. So, okay, now we're starting to get a little light, so don't be too heavy-handed on pushing it down anymore. Just try to smooth it out. Another thing you can use to try to smooth it out a little bit, if I can grab it, is a paintbrush. You just dip it in water a little bit, then you can just kind of come in, and this will feather the edges, or so I'm told. And actually it does, because this is how I do 99% of my seam work anymore for my kits. This is great stuff. I can't recommend it enough. All right, so see, we go along there, and the seam line is disappearing. So we'll work down into this section of the leg. Now we're coming into a section where it's going to be a little tricky to get in there with my fingers, so we might have to actually use a tool on that one. We'll have to see. Again, doing the same thing, rolling out the putty. I mean, just that little bit I mixed up is probably going to do a good majority of this kit. Oops. Just, you know, take your time. What's that old saying? No hurry, no worry. Yeah, see, I'm going to have trouble getting my finger in there. So I'm still going to take my tool, but dip it in a little water. I'm just going to go in and smooth along. Again, being careful not to press too hard. Don't really want to mush it out of there too much. We're not going to get the nice kind of smooth finish we got with the finger, but with my pinky here, we're going to see if we can go in and kind of smooth it out a little bit. And then we're going to use the brush again, and we're just going to go in, and this will smooth out any rough spots, and this will feather the edges. And then what we can do is, I see there's kind of a hard line there. What we'll do is we'll kind of sculpt in a line there, just to kind of make it seem maybe like it's part of the muscle. That's another thing you can do with this putty too, that you really can't do too well with the tube putty, is kind of sculpt in a little detail with that, because it's a putty and not a or it's a harder putty, I should say, harder medium. So, okay. So we've, in a matter of a couple minutes, we've pretty much got this leg done already. You know, we've got the other side here, but that one seam went pretty quick. If we were to use the tube putty on this, we'd have to lay a bead, try to smooth it out as best as we can. Then you'll have to come in and sand, and chances are, because this shrinks when it dries, you're going to have to put some more putty in, you know, and it's just a repetitive process. So let's look along this one here. See, we've got the usual seam line on this one. I'm just trying to see if there's a section where we can do a little sculpting in the hair. Right here. If you look right here, you can see where the mold line is. We could grind that, we could cut that down and, you know, try to take the X-Acto knife and, you know, try to cut the detail back in. But it just might be, you know, just as easy to take a little putty, roll it up in the ball again, you know, roll it out into a line. It'll build that area up too, because that mold line is offset. As I said before, the mold shifted a little bit, so one side is higher than the other. And by doing this, we'll build it up even, and then we can sculpt in some new hair detail. We'll just, you know, do it the usual way. Just press it in. It's all right if you blend in with the other hair, because we're going to be sculpting it back in. So it's no big deal. And then we'll take this needle tool here. We'll just kind of go in, redefine that area there, and just try to find some hairlines that we can start and follow, fade into, like right there. There's one there. We'll run a little one right there. Maybe come in a little bit. There we go. It's okay to be a little sloppy, because we can bring the brush in. That'll smooth us back out again. So now I'll grab the brush. You know, the brush, you don't want it really, really wet, because it'll soak up a little too much of the putty. Okay, we go back in, because we lost some of our lines. So we kept pretty much everything intact. And come back in with the brush, a little lighter this time. And there, you can see we've taken it, we've sculpted in the hair detail. This I like when a kit has, like a King Kong kit I had from Dark Horse. All the cuts, there's no place to really hide them, so they're like across the bicep, so you have to take that putty and, you know, sculpt that hair detail back in, and it's virtually impossible with this. It's just a lot of work. But with this, you know, half hour I had it done, so it's really great. Again, we've got we'll go back to this one. We've got the boot. The reason I did that is I just wanted this to set and dry a little bit. So we've still got another flat surface. We'll be doing the same thing. Just put a little putty down in there. You know, and it's just mush it down in there. With this putty, you're going to want to let it sit for a good, you know, 8 hours. I usually let it sit for a day. That's a good thing to remember. Is just let it sit for a day after you get done. And I mean, this stuff will get rock hard. I mean, it'll be a real hard putty by the time it dries. So I'm going to continue on doing the putty work. There's really not much left to do except on the other leg. You know, some redefinition of the hair. Most of it is just engraving it back in. But that's going to pretty much do it for the seaming aspect of this kit.